Hello and welcome to this week's session on the medical debate, where this week we will be talking to a current Cambridge medicine student about their experiences and how we can also try and aspire to get into Oxford.
Have a few drafts of a personal statement. So it's really not something that has to be perfect first time. You're going to get it checked by a bunch of people as well. So it's important just to, when that comes, just to start writing, get your ideas together, and then you can start making it sound nice and getting it to flow. Finally, sorry, not finally, next up is the UCAT exam. And this is an interesting exam. I'll say it's an interesting exam. I really didn't enjoy preparing for this one. Um, So this is the exam done by most medical schools, apart from those ones that are there, that I've listed there. And it's a completely computer-based 2-hour test containing 5 sections, verbal reasoning. I mean, you guys can read that. It's those 5 sections. And with those 5 sections, it sort of depends on what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. So for me, I was worse at verbal reasoning and abstract reasoning. But again, the thing with the UCAT is literally it's practice makes perfect. So the amount of work you put in, you'll normally see those results and yourself improving as you go on. And like when you start the UCAT, you'll think, how am I going to get better at this? Like it's a really bad feeling. But really, with practice, it really makes a massive difference. And in the bottom right corner there, I've got this like big M sign. That's this website called Medify, and they are the best way to prepare for the UCAT. It does cost. I can't remember how much it costs. It's not too much, but like for what you're getting, it's completely worth it. They take you through each section, how to approach each different question style they normally ask, and they have a ton of practice questions, mock papers, all under time conditions, and also mimicking the style of the UCAT. So when the time comes for you to get that, I'll definitely recommend using Medify. And then on the UCAT website itself, they have a few mock papers, which you should save for like a few days before you actually have your exam. And as of this year, so those people who are doing the UCAT this year, they can do it between the 2nd of August and the 1st of October. So again, like you can either do it in summer or when you go back, yeah, October when you go back to school. Um, but when I did it the year before that, some people did it in July. So I think because of COVID, they've narrowed that time frame. So again, for you guys, you might be able to do it in July if you want to do it early, all the way till it's still normally early October. The deadline for that is, and yeah, right now there's not much you can prepare for at this stage. But again, when the time comes, I would highly recommend Medify, and knowing that it is just trying to put as much practice as you can in to get the score that you need wherever you want to apply. So next up with the BMAT, again, this is a lot nicer of a test. At least I found it a lot nicer. Um, Again, it's a written exam, so you're more used to that style of exam. It's split into 3 sections. So section 1 is thinking skills, which will test problem solving and numerical skills. And this is an hour long of the 2 hours. And yeah, I've written there that the UCAT is a good preparation for the section 1 of the BMAT. A lot of the styles of question that section 1 you would have experienced in the UCAT. And there's a few others, things like being able to evaluate arguments. But again, practice again makes perfect with that section 1 and those general style of aptitude tests and thinking skills. It's practice makes perfect. The more you see different types of questions, the more when you see one that's slightly similar, you'll be able to quickly know what you have to do. And then section 2 is multiple choice sciences and maths. So um, physics, chemistry, and biology, and those are all at GCSE level though. So uh, again, if you haven't done physics at AS level or A level, you won't be at a disadvantage. But might mean you might have to go back over some stuff. And they actually have a specification of all the stuff they could ask you. So that's what I used to sort of revise physics. I didn't do physics. Um, and then the thing with this section is it's very time pressured. It's like 30 minutes, but you have like 25, I think it was 25 questions. Or I think it might be more than that, but it's super time pressured. So again, thing with this is practice makes perfect, but also knowing your strengths and weaknesses. And again, when it came to the test, I had to skip a bunch of questions that I knew would take me too long, so that I could do some ones that I knew I would be able to do. And you'll find your own techniques when it comes to that practice. And then finally, section 3 is the essay question, where there are 3 essay question options, and you have about half an hour to write the essay, so it's actually quite nice. And again, because there's 3 question options, you normally will find one that you will you'll find comfortable answering. Um, and all you have to do with the essay is write point for, against, and a conclusion, and that's literally it. Because you only have one side of A4, it's not much. And the really good thing about the BEMA is that there's like 16 or 17 past papers on their website, which is a lot of practice for you. Um, so just using that is probably enough, to be honest, because that's using past papers is the best way to revise for exams. And as of this year, there's only one sitting for the BMAT, which is November. But when I sat it again, there was two sittings I could do in August or November, and I chose to do it in August. Again, if you have that option, the reason why there's the early sitting is that you get to know what your score is before you apply. And the reason I chose to do that was because more for peace of mind, in the fact that I would have preferred to apply knowing what my score was rather than not knowing. Um, but again, if you feel comfortable knowing that, okay, I'm revising this much for this test, this is probably how well I will do, and then you can go ahead and do it in November. But also, yeah, Oxford don't accept the early BMAT sitting, and I mean there might be some more medical schools that don't accept it, but I know Oxford's the main one that don't accept the early sitting. So again, these are all things you can look up and to decide which sitting you want to do. But again, it's personal preference really. And then getting on to sort of the final stage, the interviews after you've done the BMAT and the UCAT, and you're nearly at the end of the process. Then it comes to dreaded interviews. Um, so the three different types of interview. The main one used by medical schools is MMI, so multiple mini interviews. And this style is where there's normally 7 to 10 stations, and they can just literally ask you anything, and I mean anything. Like I got some of the most random. I can't like disclose what I got asked, but the most random stuff in my medical interview. And in any animal mind, you can literally be asked anything. And again, each one of these styles has its own benefits and drawbacks. So MMI, you're having to move from station to station. So you get a sort of a fresh start each new station. So if you've messed one up or you think you haven't done as well in one station, you've got again loads more chances to prove that you can answer it effectively and articulate yourself. And that's a benefit of that. A disadvantage is that it's quite fast paced and you don't really get time to settle into any sort of topic because they're normally 5 to 8 minutes long each station. Then you have the panel interview, which is done by Queen Mary's and UCL. And again, those tend to be like 15 minutes long-ish. As long as that's what my friends that applied to UCL said, that it was about 10, 15 minutes, which is quite short because the MMIs end up being about 45 minutes. And that's normally three people, you and then three people. They can be medical professionals, teachers, just members of that university staff. And they will be asking you questions about probably a bit about your personal statement, but stuff they want to ask you as well. And again, that lets you settle in a bit more. But it also means that if you're talking about a topic you don't know much about, then there's not much place to hide because you have those full 15 minutes and they don't have to switch a topic. And then finally is the Oxford style interview. Now, the main thing with those types of interviews is that they tend to be a lot more scientific than the MMI and the panel, where they're trying to more find out about you, how you deal with role plays, different situations. Oxbridge is more testing your scientific aptitude, your logical reasoning. And the thing with Cambridge, for me, I had 3 interviews in one day. 2 of them were scientific, and one of them was a clinical interview. So asking questions about medical practice and more actually about myself and personal statement stuff actually. And that was because of the college I applied to. So the college I applied to, which was Ronville and Keys, they have 3 interviews, but some of my friends that applied to different colleges, they had 2 interviews, and those 2 interviews they had were scientific. So I think my college was unique in that they had 1 clinical interview, but most of them are just scientific interviews. And then for Oxford, you actually normally go there for 2 or 3 nights, and over those 2 or 3 days you're there, you tend to have also like 2 or 3 interviews, and those tend to be again scientific. But again, it's a different experience because you actually go and stay there with other people. But the interview actual the scientific nature is quite similar, and how they will ask you, how they will test you, what they will ask you. Yeah. So just a bit of information about what you guys can be doing. Assuming that most of you are going into year 12, and again, it can seem like quite a good daunting thing. I know, I've been there, and it's not a nice feeling. But something you can be doing to really help your chance, I would say, is staying up to date on medical news is one big thing. So one of my friends told me to put a widget on my phone. So if you have the BBC News app, you can put a widget on your phone and you can filter that for the health or the health news. So if you put that on your homepage on your phone, like as soon as you open your phone, you'll see some health news. If something interests you, then click on it, read it, screenshot it, and then when you come back to starting to prep for interviews and stuff, you'll be able to say that, oh, I read this article maybe a year ago, rather than I read this article a few weeks ago, which will show them that you have had this sort of long-term commitment to learning about medical news and also just medicine in general. And especially with COVID being such a massive thing that's turned this whole country upside down. Definitely make sure you know COVID really well, about what the government did, what the rough guidelines were, what could have been done better, things like that, because that could be something they definitely ask in an interview. So just make sure you know that quite well. You can be right now pursuing areas of interest within medicine. So whether that's again just doing reading more about things you're interested in, if that's doing a research project, if you're doing an EPQ, these are just really good things that you can be doing now, doing in year 12, so that you can have a lot of things to write in your personal statement. If you don't want to be at that stage, or you don't want to be in the predicament where you come to write your personal statement and you don't actually have enough to write. So try and do as much as you can. Obviously, making sure that you're taking care of yourself with all your other commitments, with exams and with year 12 and the stress of year 12. But just try and do a bit every week, and maybe even like what I tended to do was just have a time every week I would pursue areas of interest or read medical news, and that way I knew I would get it done in the week, and I wasn't having to worry about it throughout the week. Another thing you can be doing is practicing interview questions with your friends wherever you can. So with those friends doing medicine or dentistry, to be honest, you can just be practicing interview questions, and it is really something really, really useful. You can be that person that gets a bunch of friends together to do some role plays, or to ask each other, why do you want to do medicine? Because the more you are put in these, it is going to be uncomfortable at first, but the more you're put into these situations, the more comfortable it will be, and the nicer your answers will be, and the more it will flow, so that when it comes to the interview, your answers sound really polished, and it will just make your interview experience a lot more a lot less of sort of a foreign experience, that you've had this practice, and that going into the interview, I know I've done a good amount of practice, and I'm just going to give it my best shot. And of course, working as hard as you can to get the predicted grade you want, and that is your main focus, of course, because without your predicted grade you won't be able to apply to where you want. So just make sure you're working hard, and I'm sure that goes without saying, really. Medicine is, you need to get certain grades, so just make sure that's top of your priority list. And if you are struggling, talk to teachers, ask for help from friends, and just try and make sure that you're not doing too much, and that you are taking care of yourself, taking rest, or still doing things you enjoy in this time, because it is really important. It can be quite a busy year, but making sure you have things you do enjoy doing will make it a lot more manageable for you. And then for Oxbridge, like, I thought there would be more I could say, but there's really not much I can say about, there's no sort of secret formula for, how you can get um, in terms of, what they ask at interview. They can be anything as well, just like the other types of interview. And, up to the interview point, really before that point, it's going to be same as preparing for all the other medical schools you apply for, in terms of your BMAT, or in terms of your BMAT, in terms of your personal statement. It will roughly be similar to the other medical schools. The one piece of advice I can give is related to the interviews, and something that you can start to build up in year 12. So I've written there, trying to maximize natural thought and logical reasoning. So, and this is in relation to learning. So if you try and imagine if you just try and imagine you're in a dark room, and if you're in a dark room, there's two ways to try and understand, or build up an understanding of what that room looks like. The first way is you yourself go and search that room for what's inside that room, where everything is relative to one another, and where the things are within the room, to build up a picture of what that room looks like to you. And then the second way you can understand what's in that dark room is that someone takes a picture of that room and they send it to you, or you have that picture and you have this picture in front of you, and using that picture, what's in the room. So both of these methods reach the same end point, in that you know what's in the room, whether you're done it yourself or you had someone show it to you. You know what's in the room. The differences between these two these two methods is that the first method promotes you having a sort of a 3D understanding of that room. Of if someone showed you another angle of that room, you'd be able to recognize it. But if someone showed you another angle or another photo, if you've done the second method where you've just been shown a photo, you probably won't be able to recognize that room. So the idea I'm trying to get at here, it probably sounds really strange, me explaining it like this, but is that the first method, it promotes a 3D understanding of a given concept, applying it to sort of learning. And then the second method, where you're being shown something, um, promotes sort of a 2D, and you're only going to understand a concept in the way that they've shown it to you. And this is something that I think you can apply in whatever areas interest you, in things you learn at school, to try and promote natural thought. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're learning something at school, and either there's something about it you don't fully understand, or you're actually interested in that topic and you want to take that further. Um, Try and first think about, if you're not sure about, why this has to occur in the body, or why electrons are organized in a certain way in a certain atom. Try and think for yourself first, why is this the case? And then after you've done that thought for yourself, try and either learn another way that this concept's taught, or just try and further your understanding of a given concept. Because in schools, we're quite commonly taught according to specifications. We have to learn things to a certain standard or a certain level. And at schools, for the most part, again, this can depend on a teacher you have, for example, they're not going to take that much further. And the thing with these interviews is that that's what they're actually testing. They're going to give you a question on a topic you've done at school. They're going to ask something that you would have never heard that style of question before. So they're really testing how sort of 3D your knowledge is of these topics. And the thing with this is that you don't even have to do it for every topic you study at school. I think it just has to be a few topics that that you want to pursue further, or you want to just give a bit more thought. That you take some time to try and understand it for yourself, and then maybe look a bit further into the topic or the concept. And by doing that for a few topics, even if at the interview, if at the interview they don't ask you about that topic, you will be able to come up with a lot more of a logical thought process, because of you having done that sort of thinking before. And that even if you don't get to the right answer, it will sound logical to the interviewer, and that will sound good in itself. Because a lot of these questions, they don't expect you to get the answer anyway. It's more about, okay, how do you think about it? And if you can sort of promote that in year 12 and get started on that early, in your own time, then that can really help that process. And not only with Oxford interviews, I think it definitely will help with that, but also the other interviews where they might give you a random question. If you can build up your thought process from first principles, from having sort of a 3D model of that given thing, it will really help. And again, for me, this was something that actually was more passive at first, where I was lucky to have a teacher who promoted that within our biology lesson. And then as time went on, I started to do that for myself. And again, that's sort of what I, reflecting on the interview process, I thought that, okay, that might have been something that did help me maybe think about it in a certain way, or answer it in a certain way that other people might have done. And that's the main piece of advice I can give to those Oxford interviews, preparing for those, is that try and do that wherever you can. And it doesn't have to be every topic. It can be, as few as you want, or as many as you want. And I think that will just help you build up a thought process where you can take any question that anyone gives you and look at it from more than one angle. And that'll be quite impressive when it comes to, for example, an Oxford interview, to hopefully make you stand out amongst all the applicants that do apply. Other than that, I'll be more than happy to take any questions you have, and I hope what I've said has been somewhat useful for you guys. So yeah, Sidif or Shivas, if you have questions that they.
Yeah, Shivas will be running the question section. I just wanted to say, Fozzy, again, that was an amazing talk. Thank you so much.
No worries, man. No worries. I really hope that those listening can understand what I've said, and also have benefit from what I've said, and hopefully you guys can put that into practice. And it does sort of put the whole medical application in perspective, because it is a big thing, and it's something which is very, very arduous, long process, but it is manageable. If you take it step by step, it's definitely